I spent all of 2024 analyzing Google Shopping ads, and after going through 193 different ads from different industries and niches, I found out a few similarities between all of those that were actually crushing it. And I personally believe these similarities are what makes the difference between a good Google Shopping ad versus a bad one. So in this video, I'm gonna go over a few key things I learned about Google Shopping ads in general. But with that, the first major key thing I learned about Google Shopping ads after analyzing every single one of these ads is the small details matter the most. Now, this right here is the perfect example of this. What I've done is I've searched up the keyword 3D printer, but for a specific brand, which is called FlashForge. And what I want you to see is that FlashForge is not the only brand ranking here. Yes, there's a few that are coming up from FlashForge. However, there are a few competitors coming up here. But the small details matter the most with Google Shopping ad. What I mean by this is overall, on a very broad, holistic view, you can see all of these products essentially look the same. It's essentially a big black box. However, when you start going a bit detailed, when you start looking at the intricate things within the Google Shopping ad, specifically the image itself, you start to realize that these black boxes, they're actually not the same exact thing. Now, what I mean by that is if we look right here, the first ad which really popped out to me was this one right here. It's not because of this big black box, rather it's because of what's inside that box. If you see right here, this brand decided to put basically a small snake in different colors, which helps the product as a whole pop out. This is very different from what they did right here, where it's essentially that big black box just in view. And this is why small details matter the most. Even if we were to just take out that keyword and just basically look at all of the composition coming up for the major keyword 3D printer, we can see that those brands that have small details inside them are the ones that are popping out the most versus those that are just big black boxes like these. For instance, this little thing that's in different colors right here, or this little piece of foil at the very end of the product, or maybe this orange thing right in the middle. All these things can be classified as small details to a normal user. But the thing is, these small details make the difference between you seeing the ad versus you kind of just glazing over that ad and not even giving it a second chance. Because the thing you want to understand with Google Shopping is the moment somebody glazes over your ad, basically lose that sale 90% of the time, because people will normally just go from left to right and they will keep scrolling through until something catches their eye, and that will eventually cause them to click on that product. So your main goal is to get that click, and you need to ensure that you focus on the small details. Because if the product is amazing, let's say it's world-changing product, something that the users have never seen, but if it does not capture attention, it's just not going to sell on Google Ads, period. So you want to focus on the small intricate details, what you put inside of the product image, the direction the product is pointing, the background color, all these things from these 193 different ads I studied. They essentially focus a lot more on this, which is why they end up being so successful. But that's not the only thing. The second thing you need to be focusing on is the return policy. Now, this might seem a little bit out of the blue. However, from what I have seen, those brands that are offering bigger return policies on the back end are basically the ones that are ranking more in the front 9 out of 10 times. If you look right here, this brand offers 35-day returns, it's ranking number 1. This one, 30-day returns, ranking number 2. This one, 14 days, this one, 14 days, this one, 60 days. So as you can see, while it's not always the case where having a bigger return policy is always gonna rank you in the front, it does increase your chances. And this kind of is something I just recently started to see a lot more often, and that's probably because Google associates the return policy with the type and quality of your brand itself, which means if you have a bigger return policy, that means you have more trust in your products. If you have more trust in your products, that means you also probably care about the customer as well. And that's at the end of the day what Google wants in 2025 and onward. So having a return policy of 30, 60 days and beyond is what I believe is one of the easiest ways to just give yourself a little bit of a higher quality score so you can end up ranking more towards the front. Again, you need to ensure that all the other things are on point as well. If you just start relying on return policies, and sorry to break it to you, but it's probably not going to help you rank in the front. Along with a good return policy, you need to ensure you have a good business. You need to ensure you have a good, strong product feed, so on and so forth. But from my experience now looking at these 193 different shopping ads, what I have seen is a little switch switch goes off in the back end with the Google Ads algorithm, which causes it to favor these brands with higher and bigger return policies. Third, most important thing I learned about these Google Shopping ads and how to win is the Google Merchant Center descriptions. Now, the descriptions back in the day, you could kind of get away with ranking something just basically with the normal writing, or maybe you could even use ChatGPT to write your description. Nowadays, forget about it, because Google's algorithm is basically introduced something called the Research with AI section, which is this one right here when you click shopping, which essentially deep dives into your descriptions, at least those that you submitted into the product feed in the Merchant Center. As you can see, it's actually highlighting certain keywords in here, and this is because the AI, the algorithm, is now reading through your descriptions word for word and then ranking it based on how many keywords you're using, what kind of keywords there are, not just the keyword that the user typed, by the way, because if you see right here, the keywords that the algorithm is actually highlighting is like easy to use, fully enclosed design, core XY kinematic system, vibration control, auto bed leveling, etc., etc. So what that means is it's not just about being relevant with your keywords within descriptions, it's about adding necessary details from the left-hand side right here, the refined results section. This is why I always say refined results is where you should be finding your keywords, because this, if you combine it with the right description, is what will really help the algorithm understand where it should be ranking your products, and your products will end up being on the big screen because it's no longer with just shopping right here with the small little product images. This is going to immediately capture a lot more attention than these listings right here. So that's why you need to be focused a little bit more on the description, make sure they have the right keywords, high perceived value increasing words, but in addition, extra filler words which describe your product, which describe how it makes the user's life easier, like the brands do right here. And the best way to approach this is to just do a little bit of research within your niche to figure out what your audience wants to see. Do they want to have a product which is easy to use, or do they want something that's more kind of sleek or portable or adjustable? Basically use those words within description. Fourth thing, which has become extremely important, is the search terms. Now, if we go on back to the Google Shopping listings right here, we click these three dots. What I want you to see is basically this section here of why you're seeing this ad. Most e-commerce brand owners don't even know about this, at least from the ones I speak with under my agency or marketing, which, by the way, if you run a brand doing 50,000 or more per month in revenue, you need extra help scaling to the next level with Google Ads and Bing Ads, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com, schedule a completely free call with me, and let's see if we can potentially work together and make that happen. But essentially, the main reason why Google shows certain ads versus why it doesn't show other ad types is because of the search terms, period. That's essentially the biggest thing that you can get right with your Google Shopping listings. Have the right kind of search terms, because that's essentially what Google is using to rank these products and to rank the ones that are all the way in the back. Now, how do you kind of deal with the search terms? Well, first of all, you need to be doing audience research, keyword research to understand what your audience is even searching. But second, you need to ensure that the search terms you're ranking for is a relevant search terms with not too much competition for them. Because if you search up a normal keyword on Google and then you end up finding like 5,000 different competitors, well, that might not be the best search term to rank for because it already has so much competition. Instead, you should be going after some things which are a bit more narrow, a bit more specific. And again, you can find more of these on the left-hand side right here via the refined results section. But search terms at the end of the day determine a lot of things. But fifth and most important thing of all that I've learned about shopping is the audience holds much more importance than the algorithm, at least right now. What that means is, before, a lot of e-commerce brands, what they would do is they would go on Google, they would introduce things like keyword stuffing, where they would add a bunch of SEO keywords that are titles with commas in between. They would make their product images so that it's more designed for the algorithm without really caring what the user thinks about it. And they would do all these fancy strategies and just approaches which were designed for a robot versus the user watching or reading or viewing their ad. And this does not work anymore in 2025 because Google and the algorithm actually wants you to cater to the audience more. And Google knows if you're doing this or not by just the amount of interactions you guys are getting, by how much time these users are spending on your website. So what that means is, in terms of product titles, for example, you need to be writing product titles that are professional and eloquently written for the user reading. It needs to flow well, actually. You need to make sure it's in proper grammar skills and proper English skills, because otherwise the user is going to think of your brand as unprofessional and they're not going to interact with your ad. Second, you need to also make sure they have things like high search engine optimized keywords. It needs to have high perceived value. It needs to be flowing well together and not just be a bunch of keywords jam-packed together. And all those things basically need to be done, which the user can benefit from. The user can trust your website more, it can trust your products more, because only then will they interact with your ad. And the ultimate goal, the key in 2025 and onwards for your product, is to get more eyeballs on them, to get more viewers, get more users interacting with them essentially. Now, don't get me wrong, you still need to be writing things for the algorithm. You need to be ensuring that the algorithm is satisfied, because without satisfying the robot, you're not really going to get much traction on the Google Ads side of things with your products. But you need to have a perfect balance between them. And I would actually recommend 60% of your efforts go towards pleasing the audience, and then 40% go towards pleasing the algorithm. Because if you please the audience first, that's where you'll get more clicks, more interactions, etc. And that is what will ultimately scale your brand to the very next level. But again, if you run a brand doing 50,000 or more per month in revenue, you need extra help scaling to the next level with Google Ads and Bing Ads, go on to my website at yourmarketing.com, schedule a free call with me, and let's see if we can potentially work together and make that happen.